Hello and welcome back to another episode of Generation Films. My name is American Ben. Guys, I have no good excuse for the lack of Expanse content lately. I just feel like I've set the bar high with most of my previous videos on the show and now I'm cracking under the pressure. Also, I have another channel I just started and so I'm busy with that and can't do the level of Expanse video I want to do given my limited amount of free time, but that should change soon. But I've got to do something for my homies out there who love the Expanse as much as I do. So today I want to take another look at the Expanse's conflict, specifically pertaining to Season 5, and ask how it might be solved or at least ameliorated. Now this video might be a bit easier to digest for those of you who have already watched the two previous videos I did related to the Expanse's political conflict about half a year ago or so, in which I talked about how the conflict is misunderstood and then how game theory can explain the conflict respectively. Long story short, there's a lot of conundrums going on in the Sol system, and solving for X or Y in the ways we might be conditioned to think those variables should be solved might actually make things worse. That the factions in the Sol system remain in tension actually helps to cultivate peace and progress. Nonetheless, I don't want to rehash those videos here. They give a good basic overview of some of the dynamics in play in the show's universe, and watching them might help you understand the perspective I'm going to put forth in today's video. Or might confuse you more. I don't know. Now, thus far in Season 5, things have actually been pretty simple. Marco Inaros and his crew of renegade belters are wreaking havoc in the Sol system. They're the antagonists, and the other characters we've come to know and love are out to save the day. Except for Amos. He's actually descending back into beast mode, and ain't nothing wrong with that. Be yourself, bro. Amos knows I'd kick his ass, though. Don't tell him I said that, though. Bother him. Of course, all of this madness culminates in Inaros launching stealth asteroids at the Earth, which make landfall and kill millions of people, setting the planet up for some sort of Kevin Costner movie to come. I also want to point out the hilarity of this awkward moment when UN Secretary General Nancy Gao's ship gets taken out by the blast from one of the stealth asteroids. Avasaral's all like, oh, so am I the Secretary General again, or? But the focus of today's video is Marco Inaros' questionable decisions. It is really hard to not say Marcos. Why is that? I know it's Marco, but I'm gonna be saying Marcos throughout this video probably, so call me out if I do. It's really hard to not. I mean, most people would probably just cut this video off at man launches asteroids at Earth, because, well, that is pretty commonly considered a dick move. Listen, for you kids out there, don't launch asteroids at your enemies. But anyway, in today's video, we are going to consider whether this action was right for Marco Inaros and his crew or not. As you well know by now, there are three major factions in the Sol system: Mars, Earth, and the Belt, each which comprises various territories beyond their home planets, or in the Belt's case, home asteroid. Which brings me to my next point. Belters are a marginalized group that, since the dawn of the space age, has seen their people suffer greatly. The Belt does not command the resources that Mars and Earth do, and given their impoverished status, they are beholden to these superior powers. In the time that the Expanse takes place, the Belt is finally starting to come into its own and assert its independence. Belters want justice, and for many of them that just means self-sovereignty. But for others it means vengeance, a desire driven by anger. An anger engendered by inequity itself, partially perpetrated by the powers that be. But there's sort of a gray area that connects those groups of Belters which believe that the Belt can rise in cooperation with Earth and Mars, and those groups of Belters which believe that the Belt will only escape its subjugation through violence. That is, all of these groups to some degree seem to believe that the Belt must assert itself in order to be taken seriously by the other powers. Now, Kamina Drummer would probably say, well, yes, we need to be self-sufficient, but we can become that way by worrying about ourselves and acceding to intra-system norms. On the other hand, Marco Inaros would say, we're never going to be accepted into the big boys club unless we F some people up and force our way in the door. Doing impressions is my passion. Now, our Western-nurtured consciences would most likely lead us to simply sense that Kamina's philosophy is the morally superior one. However, is it necessarily true that the peaceful way is what is best for the Belt? And if not, is it moral? Now, I'm going to put morals aside here because that's a deeper conversation. But check out the Warhammer video I did a few weeks ago on the Imperium of Man if you want a more in-depth investigation of moral rights and wrongs pertaining to violence. However, what we do need to answer is, what is best for the Belt? As in, what will lead the Belt to get their best outcome? And of course, we are going to assume that the best outcome is one in which the Belt has achieved equity relative to Earth and Mars, at least in terms of influence over the affairs of the Sol system. Remember, as I stated in earlier videos on the Expanse's conflict, theoretically speaking, a state must establish a credible threat of force vis-a-vis other states if it wants to wield influence in geopolitical affairs. There are, of course, instances in practice in which the power players simply afford weaker states a voice sans a credible threat of force, as in the UN, but ultimately this isn't just a benevolent action on the part of a superpower. This happens as a result of another superpower with credible force advocating for the rights of lesser states for a variety of reasons. And in the Sol system, the Belt has no advocate, and up until the events that begin the Expanse, they have no voice in geopolitical affairs either. Over and over again, we see Belters, seemingly sane Belters, justify violent actions perpetrated by Belters against other states on the basis of injustice.
Marco is trying to build something for all the children of the Belt.
And he's building it on a river of blood.
Injustice often breeds deep-seated frustration. And if the perceived oppression of a group gets to be great enough, violence and uprising from the oppressed group will likely result at some point. Marco Inaros isn't necessarily so crazy to think that violence must be employed to rescue the Belt from its woes. The Belt has still not achieved equal footing with other powers, and because of this, Belters continue to suffer. Sure, following the role that the Belt played in the ring space in Season 3, they began to be taken more seriously by the UN and Mars. They were given a significant role in managing the ring gate system. However, it could be argued that part of the reason that the Belt experienced this ascension was that the other powers were somewhat worried about the more violent Belter factions and believed that having a cooperative ally in the Belt would be beneficial to them. The implied tragedy there, of course, would be that peaceful Belters benefit as a result of the work that renegade Belters carry out and often die and are demonized for. Why would Earth and Mars just allow the Belt to have more power? It's hard to answer that question without at least considering that it's because if they don't, they'll have to deal with Belters blowing up their ships and other violent attacks. We may want to believe that humans are capable of operating a society in which everyone helps everyone out of the goodness of their hearts, but the darker truth is probably that a mix of good cop and bad cop makes the world go round. So Marco wants to establish a credible threat of force, and it's truly impossible to say for sure that the Belt would be better off using completely peaceful tactics. Actually, I think that's even unlikely. So our question really becomes narrower here. Did Marco need to hit the Earth with 3 asteroids and kill millions of people? Well, it's hard to say, but let's listen to Marco explain his reasoning himself.
I freed all people and returned the dignity to the Belt that the Inners denied us for generations.
So to me, this reasoning is problematic because it doesn't speak to tangible outcomes. Instead, it alludes to something more vague. Dignity. So he killed millions of people in order to restore the dignity of Belters, and as he says, to free them? It seems like he's being a little bit metaphorical here, but nonetheless, assuming Marco did restore dignity to the Belt, perhaps in the long term this will have some sort of positive effect on Belters, but ultimately Marco's claim is immeasurable. So let's listen to more of his explanation.
We have taken back our place in this system and shown our oppressors a strength they never thought possible. The future of the Belt has begun.
Okay, his reasoning here is more coherent. He's alluding to establishing a credible threat of force. However, the question still looms. Why kill so many people? It's almost as if the only explanation for that is that he's a madman. I say this because my sense is that it's a step too far, but I could be wrong. Let me explain. I said that the goal of a state is to establish a credible threat of force, and that can actually be achieved by using force. The use of force implies the threat of future force. However, part of the reason that establishing a credible threat of force works for State A is that the target state, State B, wants to avoid becoming a victim to said force. You kinda have to leave State B with something to negotiate for here. I think in a real-life scenario, it's possible that following an attack like Marco's, Earth could be spurred to negotiate in order to protect its remaining interests. However, I mostly feel like when you execute such a devastating strike as Marco did, it's almost as if you make negotiation pointless. I mean, you do have the case of the US dropping atomic bombs on Japan during World War II, but that was a much different situation because in that case, the US was the superior power. In the Expanse, the UN is the superior power and they're the ones who were attacked, but I don't think the Belt crippled them. So the Earth still has the capability to strike back, and now the Belt has started the war that Earth would have wanted to use negotiation to avoid. I'm not sure Marco wants to establish a credible threat of force as much as he just wants to dominate the Sol system. He seems like a bit of a megalomaniac. I mean, 1 asteroid hits and okay, maybe we can make a reasonable argument that the attack was a necessary evil. But 3, you're just a jerk. Why would the Earth negotiate now? You've already caused their worst nightmare. Now they have to retaliate or surrender, the latter being what Marco might secretly be hoping for. Though I don't see acquiescence being the UN's move anytime soon. As I said, they're not crippled. And Marco's choice now is to either surrender or double down and attempt to fully crush Earth's forces. This just wasn't a sensible move on Marco's part, because he has made the belt into an existential threat, and Earth is going to have to act to extinguish that threat, rather than accede to demands to give his faction a seat at the table. And peaceful Belter groups stand to lose their gains due to what Marco did. The only way forward now for the belt is to defeat Earth. I think the moral of this story is to never go full Marco. Anyways, that is the video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please do give it a big thumbs up. Let me know down in the comments below what you think of Season 5 so far and what you think of everything I said in this video. Remember to subscribe to this channel, hit that notification button, and I'll catch you next time. Generation Films, peace.